Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Real Estate Mentor Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Klunk, a realtor and real estate investor, and on Instagram at Top Louisville Realtor, if you'd like to follow me for lots of great information on investing in the real estate market. I am excited today to have Zach Lemaster joining us. He has a very interesting background and business model, and we're going to talk about a lot of his real estate holdings, how he got invested in real estate, and also what he can offer you as an investor. So, Zach, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
Jonathan, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
You have a lot of great information, and I'm eager to share that with our audience. Before we begin, I'll give a quick background on Zach. He is the founder and CEO of Rent2Retirement. That is the largest turnkey real estate provider in the world. He is a seasoned real estate investor with a pretty big portfolio of rental properties across multiple markets and a lot of different asset classes. Those include single family, multifamily, commercial, and new construction as well. Zach, interestingly enough, is a licensed optometrist. He practices, though, right now on a volunteer basis. He started investing in real estate while working both as an ophthalmologist and being a captain for the U.S. Air Force. Thank you for your service. He has since retired from the military and from his medical career to do real estate investing full-time and teaching others how to do it as well. He strategically invests in markets that maximize cash flow, appreciation, and equity. That is what we are all looking for in our real estate investments. So we're going to dig in and learn a lot more about that and have pieces of information that you can take away from today's episode and start implementing into your real estate investment business almost immediately. So, Zach, why don't we just kind of start at the top? Tell us, how did you get involved in real estate investing?
I'd be happy to, and thank you for that introduction, Jonathan. My story is probably similar to a lot of people that find themselves in real estate full time. I didn't start here. I was interested in real estate early on in my life, but this kind of led me down a different path. So as you mentioned, my wife and I are optometrists by education. So we met in school in Portland, Oregon. I was on scholarship with the Air Force. So I went into the Air Force as a young captain and practiced for close to 7 years. That's where I started investing in real estate. I used a VA loan, bought a house hack, a duplex, lived in half, rented out the other half, and kind of fell in love with the real estate at that point because I realized, hey, I can buy an asset where I own a piece of real estate with essentially no money down using the VA loan where I can live for free because my tenants pay my mortgage, and I can have an asset that is growing in value over time through the tenant paying the loan down and the home appreciating. In addition to that, I get some tax benefits. So I thought it was really a tangible type of asset that I enjoyed. And so I went out and bought another duplex, right? And just continued to buy. And this was close to about 15 years ago. And one thing I always tell people is over the past 15 years, because we've built a very robust portfolio that's allowed us to retire from our career paths in healthcare and eye care. And after the Air Force, we moved to Denver, where we're located now, and we had private practices, and then since retired from that career path. But one thing I tell people is that I've always invested every single year, regardless of where interest rates are at, what's going on in the market. Every single year over the past 15 years, we bought properties. I haven't made money on all of those, right? But I've always consistently invested. I think that was really important. But there was a pivotal moment that really changed the trajectory of our lives and our investing career path. And that's where we decided to invest outside of our local area. I was stationed in North Dakota at the time. It's an okay cash flow market. It's not an appreciation market, but that's where we started investing because that's what we knew. That's where we were locally at and we felt comfortable with. Once we really learned how to invest strategically out of state, where we could identify different markets throughout the country that had better returns, lower home prices, that cash flowed better, that fed our goals better, it allowed us to diversify and scale our portfolio much quicker over time than we would have just investing locally. And that really set us up for success. Once we retired from our career path in healthcare, we had a lot of people that came to us and said, hey, these are friends and family and colleagues that said, can you help us do what you're doing, right? We think it's interesting. We see your success in real estate. We can't invest in our local market. We don't want to think about real estate. I don't want to be a landlord. Like, how do we get started? And so that was the birthplace of Rent2Retirement, which, as mentioned, is the nation's leading turnkey investment company, and just helping people follow the same pathway we did, identify the best markets across the country and actually buy rental properties. So when we talk about a turnkey property, this has been a house that we've either renovated or newly built, leased, and managed for someone in a viable investment market. So regardless of where you live or your experience level, you can have access to, buy investment properties. Fast forward to where we're at today, we're across 15 different markets. We do just under 1,000 doors annually, and we help hundreds of people, grow their portfolio.
Wow. Yeah, quite the operation that you have created. And, kind of a similar start to me. Short-term rentals brought me into the real estate economy, and started also similarly to you with a house hack, duplex here in Old Louisville. Part of that was a short-term rental. We lived in the other part and definitely covered all of our expenses while we were there. So I'm a huge proponent of house hacking, especially for younger individuals who are wanting to get started in real estate investing too. It's a great way to cut your teeth, while you're there, and very hands-on with the property. Something that is interesting to me is, you said that early on in your investing career, you started investing outside of your metro service area or where you lived. Obviously, you help people do that today, and you can teach them about that through their course. But what were those early days like? Like, how did you take that first leap of faith? How far was that property from you? Did you have a property manager? Did you manage it yourself? Because I think that that's a risk that not a lot of investors are willing to take right out of the gate.
Yeah, it was a lot. And let me tell you, our first forte into investing out of state was not positive. Okay. So, and that seems daunting because, it's outside of your comfort zone. If you're investing, some people are forced, I think, to invest out of state, especially if you live in a really expensive area where it's like the numbers just simply don't make sense here. Right. But
right.
I think that's one of the most strategic things you can do, even if you do live in a good local market, just simply for diversification standpoint. But we, the first few properties we bought them in Southside Chicago. They're actually turnkey properties. So turnkey is a buzzword that we hear about often, but we bought low income properties, probably a D-class area, nice renovations on these are small multifamily 2 to 4 units, or they call them flats in Southside Chicago. But yeah, so we the numbers looked really good on paper and the houses looked beautiful, but they performed terribly. We did have, management that was supposed to come with the property. They didn't do a very good job. Tenants trashed the place, and these were just not a good experience. And so from there, we're like, hey, there's a better way to do this, right? We see that there's opportunity investing in different areas. Maybe we don't want to be in these low income areas. We want to be more in like higher income areas, better quality tenants. And we just kind of had to be scrappy and build our own team. So start networking with people, right? Finding the right broker in the area to find deals, sourcing the right contractors and management. And we took recommendations from people as well, but sometimes you just got to work with people to, got to go through 10 or 20 bad ones, bad contractors or property managers to find a good one. But over time, we developed a systematic approach where we could more efficiently vet teams in place. And now at this point, as we build our teams from the ground up in these areas, we have like the best practices that have served us well across multiple different locations. Yeah, but it was tough early on. We still have some scars from those early days, but we didn't stop.
Yeah, learning from your own experience is very much, I believe, the best way of learning. I actually read an article on that yesterday, how people retain more when they do something the wrong way than if they just study something and try and apply concepts or memorize something. So definitely the best way to really learn how to do all of that. So I know that you're invested in a lot. So we talked about that in your introduction, that you have commercial, you have new construction, multifamily, single family. What asset types are you most interested in right now? Where's your investment attention and dollars going?
There's, different markets are always evolving, and real estate's dynamic. Real estate's a beautiful thing because you can invest in it a lot of different ways in a lot of different markets and asset classes. And sometimes that's debilitating because you're like, I don't know where to start. If you're, trying to decide, you get this analysis
Too many
paralysis.
options.
Yep. Shiny object syndrome, right? You're just bouncing from one thing to the next. But I think the way that I'll answer your question is, while we own a lot of different asset classes and there's different things that do excite me about real estate, I'm at the point now where we have a very solid foundation of real estate that's mainly in residential, that we can take the risk of taking on new assets and doing different creative things. But I always like residential properties, single family, small multifamily. This is bread and butter housing. This is probably not as sexy a real estate as many people may think about, but just your residential real estate, that is the most predictable asset class. And I'm saying this because I think if you're an aspiring investor and you haven't got started yet, or you're just building and scaling your portfolio, don't be too rushed to get into other asset classes, because residential real estate is just a really solid place. We will always hold this large portfolio of ours in residential, in growth markets. Residential, it's more predictable. It's recession proof. We have a deficit of 7.2 million houses in the US. So if you can be positioned well in an area, a lot of it, the South markets, right, where there's growing populations and an undersupply of housing, I think this is the most solid place to be. And I've just time and time again, I'm reminded that residential real estate is just a predictable way to build wealth. And so, last year we bought the majority residential actually in growth markets, those mainly being new construction. And man, looking back over the years, no asset class appreciates like single family residential properties in good parts of the country. Nothing appreciate. We're not talking about forced appreciation, value add, but like just over the long haul. It may seem slow to start, but man, you can get some of these like what we call them lottery ticket properties where they go like triple or quadruple in value. And you didn't anticipate that. You bought them for cash flow, right? But you didn't know that they were going to do it. But hey, you took the chance, you bought in that area, you held long term, and look how that turned out. So I love residential real estate.
And sometimes in that area, the best and highest use is to sell.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're looking at appreciation like that, yeah, it's there is a such thing as return on equity and time value of money, right? So you want to make sure you're positioning. And so, yeah, we do a lot of 1031 exchanges and trade up.
So you're hot on single family properties, which I am as well. I like typically single family over multifamily because your tenants are going to take care of all of the utilities, including the water. They have to handle the yard maintenance. And so aside from something breaking, break fix, all you have to do is collect rent.
Yeah, single family. I mean, I think a lot of investors, they start a single family, and I think that's a really good place to start. Or maybe doing a house hack like you and I both did. But it seems like many people are like, I want this idea of getting into larger multifamily. I want to scale up because economies of scale, or they like the idea of like, I'm a more successful investor because I own a larger portfolio.
More doors at once.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that. That's fine and dandy, right? But man, residential real estate, especially single family, and you have the best financing options, by the way, and they're the most liquid. When you want to sell the property, you sell to an investor. You can sell a retail buyer that's going to pay the most for the property, right? There's more liquid. They're not subject to the market volatility. Like we're seeing some market volatility in the multifamily space right now to some degree. So anyways, we go on and on, but yeah, bread and butter real estate, that's where the battle's won.
So that's what you're hot on right now. Tell me, what do you think is probably one of the riskiest investments outside of commercial office?
Well, I was just going to go to office and large right after that would be large box stores, retail, like large, big, like Kohl's or, something like that. So there's just not a lot of use. We're seeing a lot of repositioning with those assets and also the office space as well. We own a lot of commercial retail. These are small strip centers. We own 11 centers of those. And, those have been a challenge too. I think economically, just where we're at right now, I had a lot of people that told me that was the worst investment to make during COVID. And I still like retail, but you need to be like, we buy those for tax purposes, quite frankly. We run a successful business, of course, and we have multiple businesses. And our goal is to buy enough real estate to offset all of our active income from all sources every single year. And we do that mainly through accelerated depreciation. But, that's a different play. I mean, retail, I think those are kind of some of the more riskier stuff. I know you and I are both in short-term rentals, and there are some current concerns about people in short-term rentals. We've seen fluctuations in some markets, but ours, where we're at, we're doing well, but we're outside of the cookie cutter short-term rental in that area. We have a niche that we fulfill. So yeah, I think those are the risky plays right now.
The riches are in the niches. And of course it helps to, insulate you from any type of volatile changes in the market, that particular market, with short-term rentals, or also market saturation, which as short-term rentals continue to be a buzzword for so many investors, that is a high likelihood that could happen in a lot of areas. Of course, I always believe the top market properties always outperform the market. So, you got to think about location, amenities, and, just what you offer, how your property looks, comfortable furniture that you have. Don't mention short-term rentals around me. You'll definitely get me off topic, and I can go down so many rabbit holes with that. But one thing that's so interesting, and this is something that's new on my radar, is new construction for investors. I've always thought that existing homes, especially older ones, built in the 1950s or earlier, those are typically in parts of most areas where they're going to be more affordable, easier to rent. But now I see that you're going into new construction, which obviously is going to be in those probably higher end, more desirable areas, and definitely more of a desirable property type for a renter. if they have their choice between a new construction house or an older one, if all things considered. So how are you getting into that and still making it profitable with like the rising cost of building materials and just construction in general?
Yeah, economies of scale. I mean, and construction costs have actually come down from where we were at 2 years ago, considerably on a lot of stuff. But we reverse engineer our business model to be able to fulfill inventory for investors specifically. We build and hire builders as well to build to rent properties. And we love working with investors because we're not subject to the retail volatility or stagnation that the U.S. is seeing in a lot of markets right now. And so we can always plan that we're going to have consistent sales on new construction. And if we're building in growing areas, these are areas where the home is going to be worth more than when you bought it, and it's going to produce positive cash flow. And these are areas that are going to have strong rent appreciation as well as market appreciation. But we know that if we're building in an area that has demand and offer a good value to a long-term buy and hold investor, and we provide good products and services, we're going to have investors that are buying with us every year or every quarter. And we have that, planned disposition channel versus, trying to be a retail seller. So that's why we like working with investors. But I also think that we are able to partner with investors to offer some unique products that give us a competitive advantage against other builders in the space. We do obviously have a very good reputation and people have been very successful with us and continue to invest with us. But we're not just selling turnkey properties, Jonathan. We're helping people put together a strategy and a plan on how they're going to achieve their retirement picture or whatever you want real estate to fulfill. If you say that, hey, I want to reach $10,000 a month in passive income through investment properties in the next 6 or 7 years, it's like, okay, well, how do you get there? Let's reverse engineer that. Let's focus on the markets and the properties that are going to be able to fulfill that. Let's make sure you have the right tax and financing strategy in place. And we offer a lot of creative options for investors just to be very intentional. And I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but just to paint a picture of some of the incentives that we offer for investors. Right now, we have new construction properties, and these are probably priced between the $250,000 to $350,000, so maybe around the $300,000 on average. These are brand new constructed houses in A-class areas, mainly in the Southeast, where they're high demand, high growth areas.
A lot of growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 1,000 people a day moving to Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas and Florida, man. And the Carolinas, Alabama, I'm sure you're seeing it in your local market too. There's a population shift to the south, and that's where we want to be, right? That's the path of progress. We have some unique financing options for people that will help them expedite their goals quicker than they thought otherwise and help them expand on them. For example, we have options for people when they buy a new construction property with us. They can come in and get an immediate 5% equity position. So on a $400,000 house, it's $20,000 down, or I'm sorry, $20,000 off. So they can buy that property at $380 and have immediate equity position, whereas a retail buyer, would buy that at $400 or possibly higher. Instead of taking that equity position, we can pay their down payment for them, a portion of their down payment. So they can get a 5% kickback on their down payment. Instead of putting 20% down, they'll put 15% down and get that 5% kickback. We can also buy their rate down, use that to buy their rate down to 3.99%. Right? That's the best rate we've seen in 2 years. And so that's going to allow them to just dramatically increase their cash flow. We also have investor loans where they can buy multiple properties with as little as 5% down. These are loans. These are portfolio loans from local credit unions, not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, portfolio loans held in-house by local credit unions where they can buy a house with 5% down and have us actually cover the 5% down payment, right? So they're into the property for zero money down. Now, each one of these scenarios is unique and it depends if it makes sense for you. But my point is that there's a lot of creative ways that we work with investors to help them scale their portfolio to ultimately accomplish their goals.
What are your thoughts on DSCR loans while we're on the topic of financing?
Well, I mean, as you scale, like they're a necessity at some point in time. If your traditional approach has been your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, like you can only have 10 of those in your own name at any given point in time, or you can have 20 if you and a spouse do it separately. You can both be on title and own them, but finance them separately. But at some point, and especially right now with where interest rates are at, like DSCR loans, it used to be where your conventional loans, those are golden tickets, right? Like where that's the cheapest money, fixed long-term loan. Where DSCR loans are maybe a little bit more in an even playing field. They usually require a little bit more money down. They might have a term with the loan 25%. Associated. Yeah. So, I mean, we buy a lot with DSCR loans. I think it's something where you evaluate the deal with your goals and find the financing that matches the best for that scenario. I don't know if you have specific questions around DSCR, but I mean, we buy a lot with DSCR. And if you're a self-employed person and you can't qualify for conventional financing, or you've already used the max for those, then you're kind of in the bucket where you have to use those loans. I mean, most large scale investors are using those type of DSCR portfolio type of loans to still grow their portfolio.
No, I'm a big DSCR proponent. Used it several times myself. Just didn't hear you mention that in your financing discussion. So I wanted to see what your thoughts or opinions were on that.
Yeah, it's about the financing that matches the person's goal, right? We're not partial to any particular loan, and we have a plethora of lenders. You know, I know you talked about self-directed IRAs. So if you have to use a non-recourse loan, we're not personally guaranteeing it to invest through your IRA. We got a whole laundry list of some of the best non-recourse lenders out there. So it's really up to you. Like, we don't determine who uses what type of financing you use. You do, but let us help you understand what the options are and what matches your goals the most, and then share a bunch of recommendations for you on who we think are the best in that field.
I'm glad you brought up the self-directed IRA. We were talking about that before we started the podcast recording today. I'm in the process of converting my own IRAs into self-directed status with checkbook access. My goal is to have two different real estate investment kind of, I guess, buckets that I can choose from. One is creating that passive cash flow that you can use to run and operate your everyday life, use it for whatever you want. And then the other is to maximize your retirement. You know, you could take what would have been a $1 million outcome from your IRA and 10x that, up to $10 million, depending on what age you are by the time you go to retire, because everything that you do is tax deferred inside of that. So that means things such as no capital gains, no income tax that you're paying on those things, because they are non-taxable entities. Of course, it does require particular loan types. As you mentioned, you can't just go get a conventional or FHA loan that you're personally guaranteeing in the name of your IRA. It has to be very specific. So I highly recommend that you look into that. I know that through your program, you help individuals with that as well. And same with the tax strategy. We have podcasts, episodes coming up on, very detailed, very creative tax strategies, because, you can just do a typical LLC, or you can look to a more advanced strategy as you grow your business. And in addition to the depreciation that you get on the properties through cost segregation and others, you can literally reduce your payment, your obligation to the IRS, just by the way that you are structuring it on paper and with local and state and federal governments. So excited to dig into those topics in the future as well. So tell us about your program, Zach. I know that you've kind of hit little bits and pieces along the way, that you help investors, that you're in the new construction space, that you connect them with potential lenders to help them get get financing in order, and you handle the management. But what is kind of like the key focus of your business? And kind of walk me through, if I'm just getting started in real estate today, I stumble across you and Rent2Retirement, and you are going to help guide me through this process. What does that look like? How long does it take? When can I start buying properties? How do we engage with each other?
Certainly. Yeah. Our mission statement, Jonathan, is to make the best deals across the country accessible to everyone, and to help you build financial independence through real estate investing, where we are guiding you through that whole process. And so really our business seeks to identify the best markets throughout the country and establish teams there where you as the investor has easy access, regardless of where you personally live, or where regardless of what your experience level is, that you have the ability to easily tap into these markets. The client journey, the first thing we want to do is have a consultation with you. We don't charge investors anything. We make our money just as any builder does through building and selling. So our fee is built into the sale of the property, right? So again, just like any builder does. So our goal is to help you be a successful investor. So you come to us and you have a great experience and you achieve success and you come back to invest, right? So we're tied to your success. And that's why we love working with investors. We're passionate about real estate, and we're passionate about helping people achieve their goals through real estate, because real estate changed my life. I had a really good life as an optometrist, and I love that. But real estate allowed me to do significantly more, to create a lifestyle that I would have never otherwise had the opportunity to, and ultimately make a bigger impact in the eye care world. We do volunteer missions and establish clinics worldwide in third world countries where we have the ability to do that because we're in a better financial position, and we still are able to contribute to eye care in needs. And we that's a passion for us. But anyways, I got off track. To answer your question, what the journey looks like is an investor, the first thing we want to do is get on a phone call with you, right? We want to learn about your goals, your strategy, what your timeline, your resources are, what markets are you looking at, what questions do you have, where are you at in your journey. We want to help you build out an investment plan. If you're a brand new investor and you just need to understand why, what are all the things I need to know about real estate? Let's build that. Let's map out that strategy and that business plan. Essentially, after that, it's what's our acquisition strategy look like? What type of financing are you going to use? Okay, let's go get qualified for that. Then let's look at the different markets and properties to see what makes the most sense for you based on your goals. Do you want to maximize cash flow on a property? Are you more growth oriented? What is the ultimate goal for you? Do you want to maximize the tax benefits? As you mentioned, we help a lot of high income earners dramatically reduce their tax liability, and sometimes all the way to zero through real estate investing, because that's the easiest way to give yourself an immediate raise to reduce your taxes. Real estate is an excellent tax haven because we're doing what the IRS wants us to do by stimulating the economy. But we basically build out a plan with investors. We identify the markets and the properties that make sense for you. Go to contract, right? And it's a normal real estate closing. Have your appraisal, your inspection, your title work and financing. Go through all the steps. Most investors buy sight unseen. You don't have to. If you want to come visit one of our local teams, we highly encourage you to do that. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do. But most people don't, because they feel comfortable with all the information we provide to them and the tools and resources, as well as the due diligence. Close on the property. Some properties are leased at closing. Some are not if they just finish construction. So the goal is to get those leased as quickly as possible. Start sending you the mailbox money with the cash flow every single month. And then after you're all set up on the management side, what type of tax and legal strategy do you have in place? So does that make sense for you? But then what's next, right? How do we scale your portfolio? Everyone runs out of down payments at some point in time. So, what kind of things can you do what you're doing through your IRA, or do you have a HELOC, or how do you structure a partnership with someone that's interested in investing with you, or how do you, earn additional streams of income to reinvest? So we want to create lifetime partnerships with people where we're helping you be successful, not only on the properties you're acquiring through us, but just in your overall business plan and strategy. Yeah, that way you continue to invest, and we can share that journey with you. So that's typically the process.
Zach, this has been a great conversation. Offering a turnkey solution to people seems really like a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to go sign up and hopefully go through one of those conversations with you, because I love learning from other people. And as much as I know about real estate, there are always going to be people who are discovering new loopholes or tricks or tactics. And I like to learn those and incorporate those into my business as well to make sure it can be as successful as possible. Is there anything else that you would like to say that we haven't covered for our audience that might be helpful for them?
Oh man, so much. I mean, we could have done, just as you mentioned, we could have done a whole deep dive on taxes. I'll share this one experience. So we had a surgeon that is a recent investor. Him and his wife are both employed full-time, high income earners, never invested in rental real estate before. And he likes real estate, does not want to be a landlord, local market, way expensive. He doesn't even want to invest locally. And he came to us saying, hey, I like the idea of real estate. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to do anything with it. I don't want to think about it. I understand I need to have a plan, but I also my goal is maximum. We earn high income and eventually we want to retire ourselves, but we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. What can we do? And I'm going to get a little high level here for a moment, but these are things that we work on an individual basis with people. We did a scenario with him where this is the first property he's buying. He's not going to self-manage, or he's not going to be a real estate. He's not going to be able to get real estate professional status to do accelerated depreciation. What we did for him is we assisted him in buying new construction properties strategically placed in growth markets, where he used some of his these creative financing options where he put little to no money down. Some of these properties he bought with no money down. He did self-manage them for the first year, which we taught him how to do. He bought them probably 3 or 4 months before tax seasons or before the end of the year. So he bought them in the fall. This is in 2023. He was able to run accelerated depreciation on these. And an example, usually we get about 30% back as your bonus depreciation. And that's at 100%. We're less than that now. But anyways, on a $300,000 house, you could get, potentially $100,000 tax deduction that year. Yeah. We helped him self-manage those properties, buying them with little to no money down. And then that allowed him to buy more real estate because he was putting less money down on those to completely wipe out his tax liability for that year, which saved him hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes that he would otherwise pay. The next year, He turned those over to management. So now they are truly turnkey, because in that scenario, it took a little bit of time for him to get up and running. But my point in saying this is that like everyone is in a different position, right? And that individual was, his main thing was like, I like real estate. I don't want to deal with it. I want to minimize my taxes because I have, high tax liability every single year, and that's painful. And I want to be a more strategic investor. So I just wanted to share that example. Like those are kind of the things that we can help people work on an individual basis. But yeah, 2024 is an interesting year. There's a lot going on. Election year. People have been sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the Fed to do whatever they're going to do. My advice to you, don't be one of those people that sits on the sidelines and follows the masses, right? Create the opportunity. There's some exceptional opportunity. We're seeing loans at 3.99%. Now we're paying the points to get there, but the successful investors, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Jonathan, they're buying in every time frame, every market. They're finding the opportunity, right? So don't be someone sitting on the sidelines. Get out there and make it happen. And that's, I guess, my final words.
Well, just like Warren Buffett says, be greedy when others are fearful.
Absolutely.
And obviously there's always seller financing as well. If you're not going this route, but you're able to look in your local market and acquire other places. Seller financing, do not forget that. That is always a really great way to start growing your portfolio as well. Well, Zach, it was so great having you on the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about all of these pieces and, of course, to promote your business. I hope that people who are listening out there, if they see value in that and a turnkey approach and having that guidance and handholding and creativity all along the way, that they will reach out to you and go through this program. Will you tell everybody where they can find that and how they can get a hold of you?
Certainly. We always want to drive people to our website. We have our own podcast where we talk about all things real estate related, give a lot of market data and tools and resources to everyone. That's absolutely free of charge, right? We're just out there sharing our knowledge. So our website is rent2retirement.com. That's rent2retirement.com. If you're listening to this in the car, you can text REI to 33777. And we'd be happy to connect with you, share tools and resources, information about different markets that are emerging, or, if you want to explore turnkey investing and see if this is something that makes sense for you and how we can help you, we'd be happy to connect with you.
Will you say that phone number one more time?
Yes, you can text REI to 33777, and that will get you on our email dispo list and get you set up with our team.
Perfect. Zach, thank you for joining us today. And all of you have a great rest of your week, and tune in 2 weeks for our next episode, which is going to be on another exciting topic that will have tips and tricks that you could start implementing today in your real estate business to start building that portfolio and creating the life of your dreams. I'm your host, Jonathan Klunk, at Top Louisville Realtor on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you for joining us.